Well, we take you live now to Brampton, where Liberal leader Mark Carney is making an announcement. Let's listen in.
So the stakes have never been higher for our economy. In light of the evolving situation after today's campaigning, I will return to Ottawa. I will convene a meeting, including the Minister of National Defence, our Committee on Canada-U.S. Relations and National Security tomorrow. In Canada, there are tariffs that remain in place. Those tariffs are threatening our families, our workers, and our businesses. And while they have been imposed under different pretenses, they all are unjustified, unwarranted, and misguided. So we've been responding, and we are responding with purpose and force. We will fight, we will protect, and we will build. Nous allons nous battre contre ces tarifs jusqu'à qu'ils soient annulés.
Until they are removed. And we will fight with counter tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. We will protect our workers and businesses during this difficult period. And we will build a stronger Canadian economy than ever before. Build Canada strong.
Tariffs are not the only American policies that are threatening our economy and our society. They're also threatening the safety of our communities. Criminals are taking advantage of irresponsible American gun laws and their weak border enforcement to bring illegal guns into Canada. Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. And today we're announcing our plan to fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. A plan to make Canada secure, to make Canada strong. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons notre plan pour lutter.
Today we are announcing our plan to fight crime, protect Canadians, and build safe, secure, strong communities. A plan for a safe Canada, a Canada strong.
Well, criminals are trying to illegally import guns to Canada. Pierre Poilievre is trying to import irresponsible American-style gun laws into our country. You can't be serious about being tough on crime if you're not willing to be tough on guns. You can't be serious about stopping intimate partner violence without being serious about gun control. When we know from our own tragic history how often guns are involved. We are taking action, all while respecting the long-standing traditions of hunting and sports shooting and respecting the traditions of Indigenous peoples. If elected, my government will automatically revoke gun licenses for individuals convicted of violence offenses, including intimate partner violence. We will strengthen firearms licensing and the so-called yellow and red flag laws that keep weapons out of the hands of those who are a risk to themselves or others. We will invest in the RCMP's National Forensic Laboratories in Ottawa and Surrey and the Saskatchewan Ballistics Lab to increase our capacity to track down guns used in crimes. We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of assault-style firearms and leave the classification of new firearm models to the RCMP, to the experts, not to the gun industry. No new guns should come into this country before they have been examined and classified by those experts. We must stem the tide of illegal guns and drugs coming across our border with the United States. That's why the government is now deploying scanners, drones, helicopters, additional personnel, and canine teams at our border. And we will build on this foundation by recruiting 1,000 more RCMP personnel and increasing the pay for cadet recruits. We will train 1,000 new, 1,000 new CBSA officers and support their work with even more scanners, more drones, and more canine teams. We will allow police to seize fentanyl and other contraband through Canada Post mail. We will strengthen the public prosecution services of Canada to hold those who profit from criminal activity to account and to repay the people who put themselves on the line, every day to protect our well-being. We will invest in theirs. We will expand early retirement eligibility for first responders, firefighters, paramedics, correctional services employees, border services officers, parliamentary protection officers, search and rescue. And we will support their physical and mental health. My government will not only strengthen Canadian law enforcement, we will also strengthen the criminal code and bail laws to toughen the consequences for those threatening the safety of Canadians. To ensure that Canadians feel safe in their homes and communities, we will make bail harder to get for those charged with stealing cars using violence, stealing cars for a criminal organization, for home invasion, and for certain human trafficking and smuggling offenses. At bail hearings linked to these crimes, we will reverse the burden of proof, meaning that the accused will have to prove that they do not represent a threat to public safety. We will also prohibit someone charged with an offense that involves violence or organized crime from possessing a weapon when they're released. We will toughen sentencing guidelines for repeat offenders charged in relation to stolen cars and to violent and organized crime. We will protect the victims of sexual violence and intimate partner violence by making murder motivated by hate, including femicide, a constructive first-degree offense. We will make producing and distributing non-consensual sexual deepfakes a criminal offense. And we will increase penalties on summary conviction for sexual assault and the distribution of intimate images without consent. You know, new online platforms have created new threats, including and perhaps especially for children. And as much as we as parents want to protect our kids, we can't always be there. We can't always be looking over our kids' shoulders to see what they're doing or what they're exposed to online. And so while protecting children is first and foremost a parent's responsibility, it is also a collective responsibility. And with the support of Canadians, my government will act to protect children online and bring those who seek to harm them to justice. We will first introduce legislation to protect children from online exploitation and extortion. We will provide new funding to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. We will give more tools to law enforcement and to prosecutors. We will raise the maximum sentence for child luring. And when it concerns harms to children, we'll extend both the amount of time data will be preserved and the period during which charges can be brought forth for these crimes. Unfortunately, the rising tide of hatred online is overflowing onto our streets. Violence and intimidation have no place in Canada. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia must be denounced in the strongest possible terms. And I am appalled by the horrific incidents and numerous incidents in our country in recent years. I go to church myself, and I've reflected on stories like what has happened with the Temple Sinai Synagogue, what they've had to face right here in the GTA. Its signage has been repeatedly set on fire. Its congregants now have to pass through metal security bollards before they can even enter. And its leaders have had to set up active shooter drills to prepare for the worst. I've heard this advocacy directly from the community, including from last month's National Anti-Semitism Forum. They're also Far too many violent Islamophobic attacks on mosques and other places of worship and community centers across this city and across this country. And I'll be clear. If any Canadian can be threatened when simply exercising a fundamental freedom, then all of our freedoms as Canadians are at risk. And we refuse, my government refuses to allow Canadians to feel threatened when visiting their place of worship, when sending their kids to school, when going to a community center. And that's why we will make it a criminal offense to intentionally and willfully obstruct access to any place of worship, to any school, any community center. And we will make it a criminal offense to intimidate or threaten those attending services at these locations. Finally, while tackling crime is essential, it is, of course, better to prevent it. It starts by making sure that every child in this country can grow up safe, healthy, have a chance at achieving their potential. And that's why we'll also extend the Building Safer Communities Fund, a fund that steers and does good work to steer youth away from crime and towards real opportunities, and why we're supporting Indigenous-led community safety priorities. It's why this government will continue to place the highest priority on high-quality, affordable childcare, on free school meals for those who need it, a dramatic expansion in training, including in apprenticeships in the skilled trades, and a step change in the construction of deeply affordable housing as part of broader efforts by municipalities and provinces to combat homelessness. Les Canadiens et les Canadiens savent que
Canadians know we all share the responsibility of protecting our communities. We must watch over one another.
Canadians believe, in fact, our country is founded on peace, order, and security. Its promotion is the core responsibility of good government. My government will do its utmost to fulfill that mission. But ultimately, safe communities come from within, from who we are and how we treat each other. It's not the Canadian way to stoke fear, anger, and division. It's not the Canadian way to point fingers at each other. The Canadian way, our way, is to come together, to solve problems and to look out for each other. That's how we build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. That's how we make Canada secure. And that's how we will make Canada strong. Merci. Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
We'll take questions from the delegation first before moving on to local media. First question, Karina.
I'm short, but I'll just go on my tiptoes. Karina Roman, CBC News. The European Union has paused its retaliatory tariffs. Howard Lutnick has warned Canada to learn lessons from China's retaliation. What do you need to see in order to remove Canada's counter tariffs?
Well, first thing, I'll say a couple of things, if I may. First, it was welcome, the President's pause on reciprocal tariffs, as you know, but just for clarity for everyone. That didn't specifically apply to Canada. We didn't have reciprocal tariffs on, but the pause applied to most other countries in the world, with the exception of China. I spoke with President von der Leyen earlier today, had an exchange. I understand their decision to have developed countermeasures, but to delay the implementation pending negotiations. We've had very direct and frequent conversations with the United States officials, myself with the President, Minister LeBlanc, or with his counterpart, Secretary Lutnick. I think they understand our position. We have been subject to a series of direct tariffs that are still in place with respect to steel and aluminum, with automobiles, and of course I will call them the fentanyl tariffs that are in place. Key point is that we have agreed to begin negotiations between the Prime Minister and the President immediately following the election, and we will ensure that the ground for those negotiations is constructive while we stand firm with our workers, protecting our workers, and building this economy. En français, je viens d'avoir une bonne discussion avec
I just had a
la
good discussion
présidente von der Leyen de la Commission européenne.
with President von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. I fully understand the European Union's strategy.
Qui sont repoussés pour
There have been reprisals that have been delayed for 90 days.
encourager des négociations.
The aim is to encourage negotiations for the European Union and the United
L'annonce
States.
hier de Monsieur le Président Trump
Yesterday's announcement by President Trump
était bonne, était favorable.
was a good, favorable announcement for negotiations across the world, with the exception of China, obviously.
Nous avons beaucoup discussions. Nous sommes en train de
We've been having many discussions, and we're currently maintaining discussions with the Americans. For example, Mr. LeBlanc with Mr. Lutnick, the U.S. Trade Secretary,
afin d'avoir une situation pour les négociations.
in order to create a situation for constructive negotiation between the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of the United States.
Juste après l'élection.
That will begin just after the federal elections.
You said that you got Canada the best of a bad deal, or that Canada got the best of a bad deal.
God, I wasn't taking credit for it, but yes.
Now it seems that Canada has, other than China, gotten the worst deal. What do you say to Canadians who see that and think that maybe doesn't bode well for future negotiations?
Well, I don't recognize that characterization. The adjustment of the fentanyl tariffs, while not complete, carves out for what's called, we will call CUSMA compliant trade. So that is carved out, and many Canadian exporters meet that test. And it won't surprise you that we are fast-tracking others so that they can meet the paperwork to meet that test, because the grand majority of our trade is there. Look, we in Mexico have a very tight trading relationship with the United States as a consequence of NAFTA and its successor agreement, CUSMA, USMCA, as the Americans call it. And so any adjustment to that is a reduction in the market access and the degree of trade, which is why we have responded. So that's the situation we're in. We look forward to the opportunity for Canada and the United States to have that comprehensive economic and security negotiation. I'm working hard every day to represent Canada at those discussions. And I'll say one last thing, if I may, which is, and I mentioned this in my remark, the stakes have never been higher, because it's not just about our trading relationship with the United States. It isn't an accident that I spoke to President von der Leyen today, because there is an interest in deepening our trading relationship with the European Union, with the United Kingdom, with like-minded partners in Asia. And the question is, one of the big questions in this election is who's going to protect Canadians, but also who's going to represent Canada at those negotiations, who's going to get the best deals for Canada.
Prochaine question.
Monsieur?
Monsieur Carney, Michel
Bonjour.
Sabat, la presse canadienne. Le président Emmanuel Macron a déclaré hier qu'il envisage que la France reconnaisse un État palestinien.
Said that France would recognize a Palestinian state in June. Are you willing to do the same in the next few weeks?
Dans un mot, non.
In one word, no.
Mon gouvernement soutient une solution.
My government supports a two-state solution,
palestinien libre
but with a free
viable.
and viable Palestinian state that can live alongside
Israélien.
an Israeli state.
Les conditions qui concernent un État, la capacité.
So the conditions for the capacity to have a free and viable Palestinian state at this moment do not exist. That is clear to me, and it's sad, but clear.
With respect to the question in President Macron's declaration overnight, as I recall, would we follow suit, in effect, was the question. My answer, in a word, no. We support a two-state solution, But a two-state solution where we have a free and viable Palestinian state living in peace and security alongside an Israeli state which lives in peace and security, those conditions do not exist at the moment, unfortunately.
Presque chaque jour, vos rassemblements sont interrompus par des
Almost every day, your gatherings are interrupted by pro-Palestinian protests.
génocides se déroulent en Palestine.
Do you think that a genocide can happen in Palestine? Yes or no?
Cette question, c'est une question devant le cours.
That is a question that is before the International Court of Justice.
Et je ne vais
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
politicier cette situation ou ce mot.
Do you think it's a genocide?
This question is in front of the International Court of Justice. The situation is a horrible situation. I will not, and I will never, politicize that word or this situation.
Honey from CBC. The buyback program was a political mess for the previous Liberal government, something your Chief of Staff, Marco Mendicino, would remember. You've recommitted to it today. What makes you think that you can do it differently?
Well, I think first off, let me say this, which is, and I'm Natalie, if I may, look, I'm honored that Natalie has presented herself as a candidate. But she is a person like Bill Blair, like the MPs behind me, who go into public service to get things done, to change things. That's the standard, not to make an announcement to get things done. I count myself in that camp as well. And as I said in my words, in my prepared remarks, we're not just keeping it, we're reinvigorating and quickly putting it into action. So I'm going to task the Minister of Public Safety, National Security, working alongside, subject to the choices of Canadian people, accordingly, but the intention is that we'll be working closely and focused on those results, working backwards from the results. Reinvigorate the work with Canada Post, reinvigorate with the provinces, and put this into place with a top priority. My experience in managing is that you have clear objectives,